This should not be happening. We should not be here. We should not be meeting like this. Of course, we know what ought to have happened. 4 weeks ago, on the evening of Wednesday the 24th of June, we should have gathered together, first on the Old Court lawn, and then in hall for graduation dinner. For a last taste of Cambridge life as an undergraduate, before the pomp and circumstance of general admission the next day marked the end of one ambition fulfilled and opened up a new world full of challenge and opportunity. This year, it has been different. The world has been out of joint, our lives framed by uncertainty. We've been forced to learn many new things. From the trivial, who could have predicted that we can all now Zoom? That was once the privilege of a comic book hero or a race car. To the necessary, as we all wrestled with the new protocols of distance learning and with meetings and supervisions interrupted by that catchphrase yelled at the unexpectedly and frustratedly silent, "You're muted." To the serious, as we thought about what it meant to be part of a household, a group of friends, a community, a college, when lockdown and social distancing meant that we could no longer gather together with family, friends, and colleagues as we were once accustomed. A great deal could be said about the last few months, but this is neither the moment nor the virtual place to offer a social critique of the pandemic and its consequences. This is a graduation address, not a graduate seminar. I want to say simply and sincerely, and on behalf of all my colleagues here, how proud I am of those whose graduations we celebrate here today. It is no small thing to have had the final months of your time in Cambridge unexpectedly sliced away, not to have had that last terrifying run at examinations followed by the exhilarating rush of May week, not to have been able to be serious together, not to have been able to enjoy late night pizza together in the Taylor Library, not to have wandered aimlessly together from one garden party to another. These were the traditional rewards of a final year of hard work in Cambridge. What I have found particularly impressive is how this year's graduands have risen to the challenge of something completely different and entirely unexpected. Some deserve particular congratulations for their resilience and determination in the face of difficult family or personal circumstances. I am glad that college hardship funds have been deployed to help those who found that they did not have the right environment or the right kit for effective distance learning. No quiet place to work, a laptop without a camera. More widely, I'm impressed by the ways in which this year's finalists found opportunities to support each other through the last few months. In many respects, it seems to me this group of graduands, which we celebrate today, are more closely and tightly bonded together as a result of their enforced isolation than previous years of corpus students who worked hard, partied hard, group hugged, and left. I detect something more lasting here, a quiet sense of justifiable pride in achievements won in unusual times. And achievements won with a sense of community, all the more precious because it has been all the more difficult and challenging to achieve. For me, that makes this group of graduands a particularly remarkable and memorable group, and all the more deserving of congratulation. In many ways, this is a group of graduands who perhaps more than previous years are also well placed to understand something fundamental about this college and its foundations. Our College of the Corpus Christi and the Blessed Virgin Mary was founded in 1352 by the townspeople of Cambridge, who in the aftermath of the Black Death, a devastating plague, moved to establish a society of scholars dedicated, in the words of our statutes, to education, research, learning, and religion. Fortunately, the parallels between medieval plague and COVID-19 are not at all close. For not only was the Black Death a bacterial rather than a viral disease, it was far, far more lethal than COVID-19. As it swept across the known world between 1345 and 1353, the plague wiped out between 30 and 50% of the total population. As John Hatcher, our very own eminent historian of the medieval economy, pointed out to me, many of the survivors of the Black Death and their successors benefited from easier access to land, cheaper food, higher wages, and the loosening of the bonds of serfdom. The college gives pride of place in its list of benefactors to Margaret Andrew of Chesterton, who by her will, preserved in the Parker Library of the 7th of May 1349, gave lands to both the Guild of St. Mary and the Guild of Corpus Christi, which just 3 years later were to merge into the joint guild which founded this college. About Margaret Andrew, we know frustratingly very little. She had a small amount of land. She gave 1.5 acres in Chesterton to the Guild of Corpus Christi. This gift is significant because it is the earliest documentary evidence of the existence of the Guild. Apart from that, Margaret left a collection of domestic goods that suggest that she had oversight of a relatively large household. They included 14 bowls and basins of various sizes. I often like to think about Margaret Andrew. To be honest, it pleases me greatly that the impetus and imagination to found this college was provided by a woman, and a person of good, solid citizen stock. Corpus should be glad that, unlike other colleges, it was not founded by a renegade royal, a jilted queen, an overreaching bishop, or a guilt-ridden nun. The foundation of a college, an investment in education, research, learning and religion, was a response by the townspeople of Cambridge to a world turned upside down by a pandemic. After the devastation of the Black Death, it was an extraordinary affirmation of a confidence in the future, an affirmation which we renew today, 668 years later. Pandemics are often important inflection points in history. The Justinianic plague in the 6th century AD was a significant element in the decline and fall of the Roman Empire in the East. The Black Death in the 14th century was key to the end of feudalism. The Spanish flu pandemic, combined with the losses in World War I, was fundamental in triggering the social and political revolutions in early 20th century Europe. The so-called Bombay plague in the 1890s hastened the end of British colonial rule in India. The challenge that faces all of us here today, and particularly faces those graduands with whom we celebrate as they leave this college for a wider and less comfortable world, the challenge is to grasp how this pandemic, with all its disruption and dislocation, will change the way we live. What might the founders of the college, and particularly Margaret Andrew, demand of us 7 centuries later as we face our own pandemic problems? I reflect on this as I think long and hard about what sort of future I should try to shape for my own son, who turned 1 year old last month. One change I hope for is that inspired by those who marched in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. Black lives matter. This is a simple and powerful truth. It is important that we listen to and amplify the cry that went out from George Floyd in Minneapolis and has resonated around the world. It's important, uniquely so in a university, that we seek to educate ourselves about the history of racism and its living and lasting manifestations. The assertion that our society is fair and equal is one of the most offensive exercises of white privilege. To counter it is our duty. A lament that does not move us to take responsibility is hollow. But words can only go so far. Performance is easy. What matters is change. I look forward to educating myself further, to listening to a rich diversity of voices, and to translating advice into action. I also have confidence that this group of graduands whom we celebrate today, brightly glistening with the energy, enthusiasm, and idealism of the young, are committed to making that change real. My hope is that when future scholars narrate the history of our society in the early 21st century, they will see in this pandemic another inflection point, a moment when things really changed. And in so doing, we will have done right by our founders and the hopes and ambitions of Margaret Andrew. This small college should mirror in miniature the pressing concerns of our own society. There is much work to be undertaken, and I know we could have already done more than we have. Above all, we should share our founders' optimism and be certain that when these disjointed times have run their course, we shall embrace a college which will, as it has done for nearly 700 years, carry on with its ancient mission of education, research, learning, and religion. Our college should continue to be an engine of change, and its graduands should know that they will always be part of this college. Shared memories and experiences of this remarkable plague year of 2020 will bind the Corpus community, those in Cambridge and its alumni scattered across the globe, even more closely together. Today is a full-throated celebration of your graduation. It is not a fond farewell. It therefore gives me great pleasure in marking the celebration of the graduands of 2020, this year of change, to propose, according to our ancient and laudable traditions, the toast to the college. May the old house flourish. Floreat antiqua domus.